The turning point in the American Civil War occurred in the summer of 1863, primarily due to the twin Union victories at Gettysburg and Vicksburg. The Battle of Gettysburg, fought from July 1st to July 3rd, marked the Confederacy's last attempt to invade Northern territory. General Robert E. Lee's Army of Northern Virginia suffered devastating losses after failing to break Union lines, particularly during the infamous Pickett's Charge. This defeat forced Lee to retreat to Virginia, and the Confederacy never regained the initiative in the Eastern Theater. At nearly the same time, the Union, under General Ulysses S. Grant, achieved a crucial victory with the capture of Vicksburg, Mississippi on July 4th. This victory gave the Union control of the Mississippi River, splitting the Confederacy and effectively isolating its western states from the east. The fall of Vicksburg, combined with Gettysburg, shattered Confederate morale and provided the Union with strategic control of key supply lines. Following these victories, the Union's superior industrial resources and manpower gradually wore down the Confederate war effort. General Sherman's march to the sea and Grant's relentless campaigns in Virginia further depleted Southern capacity to resist. The cumulative effect of attritional warfare, economic blockade, and loss of territory eventually forced the Confederacy's surrender at Appomattox Courthouse in April 1865, securing a Northern victory and preserving the Union. Gettysburg and Vicksburg are seen as the turning points of the American Civil War because together they marked a decisive shift in momentum from the Confederacy to the Union, fundamentally altering the war's course. The Battle of Gettysburg, fought in July 1863, halted Confederate General Robert E. Lee's ambitious invasion of Northern territory. After 3 days of intense fighting, the Confederate Army suffered massive casualties and was forced to retreat back to Virginia. This defeat ended the South's capacity to wage offensive campaigns in the North, severely weakening Confederate morale and military capability. Gettysburg symbolized the failure of the Confederacy's strategic gamble to force European recognition or peace through battlefield success on Union soil. Simultaneously, the siege and capture of Vicksburg by Union General Ulysses S. Grant gave the North complete control over the Mississippi River. This victory effectively split the Confederacy in two, severing supply lines and isolating Western Confederate states. The loss of Vicksburg deprived the South of critical resources and compromised its ability to sustain the war effort. The success at Vicksburg showcased the Union's growing military and logistical superiority. Together, Gettysburg and Vicksburg shifted the strategic initiative to the Union, bolstered Northern morale, and made Confederate hopes for independence increasingly untenable. Following these victories, Union forces launched campaigns of attrition and total war that steadily dismantled the Southern war machine, culminating in the eventual surrender of the Confederacy in 1865. Thus, these two battles are viewed as the pivotal turning points that ensured Northern victory in the Civil War. The immediate political consequences of the turning points at Gettysburg and Vicksburg in the North and South were significant, setting the stage for the final years of the American Civil War. In the North, these victories bolstered public morale and strengthened support for President Abraham Lincoln and the Republican Party. The Union success at Gettysburg shattered the myth of Confederate invincibility, while the fall of Vicksburg secured control over the Mississippi River, demonstrating clear military progress. This bolstered Northern confidence in the war effort and helped Lincoln push forward his evolving war aims, including the Emancipation Proclamation, which by then was gaining broader acceptance as a necessary measure for Union victory and moral justification. Politically, it diminished the influence of the peace Democrats, Copperheads, who had advocated for negotiation and compromise, consolidating a commitment to total victory and the preservation of the Union. In the South, the twin defeats created political instability and despair. General Lee's retreat from Gettysburg signaled the loss of Southern offensive capability in the East, dampening confidence in the Confederate government led by President Jefferson Davis. The fall of Vicksburg was a devastating blow to Confederate logistics and morale, highlighting vulnerabilities in the South's strategic position. These military losses intensified criticism of Davis's leadership and exacerbated tensions among Confederate politicians and military commanders. Southern civilians and politicians faced growing war weariness and shortages, triggering dissent and fractures within the Confederate States. The political unity that had sustained secessionist resolve began to unravel, foreshadowing the eventual decline of Confederate resistance. Together, these immediate political consequences shaped the wartime leadership responses and influenced the trajectory of both the Union and Confederacy during the crucial final phases of the conflict. In the summer of 1863, the strategic decisions of Union General Ulysses S. Grant and Confederate General Robert E. Lee were pivotal in determining the course of the American Civil War, culminating in the crucial battles of Vicksburg and Gettysburg. General Robert E. Lee, commanding the Confederate Army of Northern Virginia, made the bold decision to invade the North once again. After several years of defensive campaigns on Southern soil, Lee believed that by taking the fight into Union territory, he could disrupt Northern supply lines, influence Northern public opinion to pressure the government into peace, and gain international recognition for the Confederacy. Lee's strategy was to capitalize on his army's high morale and previous victories by threatening key northern cities and infrastructure, most notably Baltimore and Washington, but also Pennsylvania. This led to the movement of approximately 75,000 Confederate troops into Pennsylvania in June 1863, an aggressive gamble considering Lee's stretched supply lines and the challenges of campaigning far from home. His strategy hinged on decisive new victories deep in Union territory to potentially alter the war's political landscape. Union General Meade, recently appointed commander of the Army of the Potomac, was tasked with countering this invasion. He maneuvered to intercept Lee's forces, ultimately choosing to engage at Gettysburg after initial skirmishes in southern Pennsylvania. Meade's decision to hold a strong defensive position on high ground, especially on Cemetery Hill, Cemetery Ridge, and Little Round Top, proved critical. His cautious but firm strategy focused on forcing Lee to attack fortified Union positions, which culminated in the repulsed Confederate assault known as Pickett's Charge on July 3rd. Meanwhile, in the Western Theater, General Ulysses S. Grant was conducting a prolonged campaign against the Confederate stronghold at Vicksburg, Mississippi. Understanding Vicksburg's strategic importance, it controlled access to the Mississippi River and split the Confederacy. Grant sought to isolate the city through a series of maneuvers and sieges. Grant demonstrated remarkable operational flexibility, conducting the audacious decision to march his forces south of Vicksburg, bypassing Confederate fortifications, cutting off supply lines, and crossing the Mississippi River to approach the city from the east. His tactics included rapid, aggressive movements to encircle and besiege the city while cutting down supply routes and preventing Confederate reinforcements. Grant's strategic decision to initiate a siege rather than a costly frontal assault showed his ability to weigh human losses against military objectives realistically by maintaining pressure on Vicksburg while simultaneously engaging Confederate forces under Lieutenant General John C. Pemberton. Grant effectively strangled the city's defenses, forcing its surrender on July 4, 1863. Together, the strategic decisions of Lee to invade the North and Grant to isolate and capture Vicksburg defined the summer's critical campaigns. Lee's gamble at Gettysburg ended in failure, with devastating losses that ended Confederate offensive capabilities in the East. Grant's successful siege of Vicksburg gave the Union vital control over a major logistical artery and split the Confederacy, laying the groundwork for further Union advances in the Western theater. These decisions exhibited contrasting approaches. Lee's high-risk offensive aimed at shifting political tides through battlefield success, while Grant's methodical and pragmatic strategy focused on attrition and securing strategic points with calculated precision. Both shaped the pivotal turning point of the war in 1863 and the eventual Union victory.